right? We wish we knew what the opponents are waiting for, what tiles are likely to be live in the wall, so that we can draw, or what tiles will be discarded by opponents, how expensive the opponent's hands are, things like that. I mean, we wish we knew these things, right? So skills of deduction, making inferences based on what we know might come in handy. But deduction is not an exact science. Trying to deduce, trying to read opponents' hands sometimes or often backfires. Sometimes we misread information, right? Sometimes even the correct information might not be helpful, right? Even if you knew exactly what the opponents are waiting for, you don't get any points by guessing correctly, right? There are situations where you just have to fold, even though you know what the weights are, right? When you don't have a tempo. So it's really better to concentrate on fundamentals, like tile efficiency fundamentals or Riichi Dhamma judgment, right? But now that you have covered all the grounds, now that you have learned tile efficiency and Riichi judgment, possibly by reading the book, now we might be ready to learn deductions so that you can better read opponent's hands or the wall. Right, because the skills of deduction are really the key to better mix digital and analog approaches, right? But we should always be mindful of the analog trap, like the overthinking problem, right? So too much confidence in your reading might backfire, right? So you got the Tanyao Pinhu Dora Tenpai in the East one, right? But look, no manzu has been discarded, right? I mean, except for the one that I discarded, right? Apparently he's doing Honitsu, right? These cards are screaming for Honitsu or Chinitsu, right? They may not be doing Chinitsu or Honitsu, right? Because of the discard, they're not that extreme, but they haven't discarded any manzu. They haven't discarded any manzu here, right? But don't think like that. When you have Tanyao Pinfu Dora, you have to reach it. There is no point. I think the opponents you'll be laughed at if you get Tanyao Pinfu Dora without, if you win a Tanyao Pinfu Dora hand without Riichi, I will laugh at you. Well, I'll be relieved that you didn't Riichi, because reaching is so much better. When you have 3,900 hand, 3,900 hand, Riichi is really cost effective. You get to double the score, right? At least 3,900 will become 7,700, right? At least. So that's the biggest leap, right? So the reason why Riichi only hand is not very effective is that the leap is very small. A hand becomes from 1,3 to 2,6, or from 1,000 to 2,000. But when you have 3,900 will become 7,700, right? That's a very big leap. So just stick with digital theory, right? In most of the situations. So there are a lot of things to read, but when you hear deduction or reading in the context of Mahjong, I think the first thing that comes to your mind would be about reading Riichi hand, right? What the weights are of the Riichi player. But if you compare them according to the order of importance, they're actually at the bottom. The most important of all is reading the wall. The next ones are reading the open hands. The reason why reading the Riichi hands is not as important is that it's next to impossible. I mean, Riichi hands have 13 hidden tiles, and you don't know what the last draws are, right? Even if you knew the shape of the Ishanten hand, right? Yamen Ishanten hand, depending on which gunman gets completed, you don't know which what the final weight is going to be, right? So it's very difficult to read reached hand, and it's not just difficult, it's sometimes pointless to guess the value of the reached hand, because it gets more or less expensive easily by luck with Uradora or Ippatsu. So reach reading is not as important as open hand reading, because open hand has a lot of information for us to read. Right? They have opened up their hands, so we can guess the values. We can also see the last tile that gets incorporated into the hand. But as I said, wall reading is the most important of all. So I'm going to talk about wall reading today, and I'll talk about the rest in Rich Book 2. So you have to wait for that. But again, this is the most important, so let's start with that. Oh, another reason why wall reading is important is that you can always use that, whereas reach reading can be used only when opponents reach, or open hand reading can be used only when opponents open their hand. Whereas wall reading, you can always do wall reading. Right. So before I introduce you the techniques of wall reading, let's see an example of wall reading. Here we have Ishanten. Chitoitsu Ishanten. 7 pairs Ishanten. Right? So the choice is between these 4 tiles, right? 4 tiles. We'll definitely keep Dora for bamboo, right? We'll definitely keep West, because it's going to be a very good weight. If you wait on West, one copy of West is out, right? So it will make for a really good weight. So the choice boils down to 8-pin, 9 bamboo, right? If you just stick with digital principle, then given that one copy of 9 bamboo, 9 so is already out, meaning that there are only 2 copies left, whereas none of 8-pin was discarded, so 3 copies of 8-pin are left, right? So 3 is better than 2. So the digital theory would say that keep 8-pin, right? Right? But that's not the end of the story, obviously. Right? We need to read. We want to read. Right? So let's try to read. Let's do deduction. Notice that all the fanpais are out, in the sense that no one can make pawn on fanpai or a triplet of fanpai. East, 2 copies of East are out. 2 copies of South are out. North are out. West player has discarded West. It's probably out. White is out. Red is out. Green is out. And yet, 2 players have opened their hand up, suggesting that they are most likely to be doing Tanyao. Right? Both of them. Right? Meaning that they don't have 9 bamboo. And they will not be able to use 9 bamboo. They're going to discard 9 bamboo. North has discarded 9 bamboo, and then 7 bamboo, very early in the hand. This suggests that he probably doesn't have any more 9 bamboo in his hand. If he did, he would not have discarded 9 bamboo this early. So suggesting that even though only 2 copies of 9 bamboos are invisible, they are likely to be live in the wall. You are more likely to draw, or other players might draw them, but they're likely to discard them. Whereas for AP, we know nothing about them, right? They may have them, they may not have them, right? So even though 3 copies are invisible, it's possible that they have 8 pin here or 8 pin here. Whereas we're pretty sure that they don't have any 9 boundary here. So we should rather discard 8 pin and keep 9 boundary. Right, so we're going to see, I'm going to introduce 6 tips that we can use to make a reasonable, to make a guided deduction. So this is just what I said. You can read them later. So tip 1, something you already know, I think. When someone is doing honitsu or chinitsu, washen, obviously that suit that's supposedly collected by the player will be scarce, will be expensive in the board. That player may only have collected lots of tiles in their hand, and other players who are not doing honitsu might not discard tiles that are supposedly collected by the honitsu player. So try, if you have a choice, try to avoid the suit if possible. Tip 2, that's probably that may be maybe somewhat new to some of you. A tile discarded early and the tiles that are next to the tile that was discarded early are unlikely to be held by the discarder. Right? So, for example, if someone discarded 8 early, then that suggests that that player is unlikely to have another copy of 8 or the ones next to it, 7 and 9. So to see why this is likely to be the case, let's think about the alternative scenario. If they had these shapes, they would not discard 8 early in the hand. They might do it later, but they would not discard 8 of 7 and 8, because this is a follow-up tile, until the hand gets very close to tenpai, or gets tenpai, right? So it's just balance of probability. It's possible, but it's not very likely, right? So when 8 gets discarded, none of them is probably the shape that they have. So it's more likely that 8 was just an isolated tile. So the discarder probably doesn't have 8 or 7 or 9. Tip 3 is the inverse of tip 2. Tiles that are discarded in middle game suggest that the discarder is probably is likely to have another copy of that tile or ones that are close to them. Right? So if 8 was discarded in middle game or after middle game, that means that 7 and 9 are likely to be held by the person who discarded it. Right? So that's the opposite, or that's the inverse of tip 2. Right? It's unlikely that someone discards an 8, an isolated 8 in middle game. Right? If they were isolated, they would not have kept it. Right? If they discard 8 in mid game, that means that they are probably connected to the rest of the hand. So just a summary of the first 3 tips. Honitsu chinitsu, scarce. Early discard suggests that the neighborhood of the discarded tile is likely to be live. Middle game discard means that the neighborhood tiles in the neighborhood are unlikely to be live. So given these 3 tips, let's do WWYD here. So we got 2 Doras, and we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 blocks, right? But we can't use 6 block method here. We really need to make a choice, right? We have to decide on which block to discard because we can't, we have no other choice. Right? We can't do any secondary. So let's now compare proto-randoms, 7, 9, 2, 3, and 5, 6. Right? If you just rely on digital theory, if you just compare the number of tiles that are invisible, 5, 6 might sound good, right? In German, no copies of 4, 7 out, right? This is decent, right? 2, 3, 1, 4 weight. I mean, 2 copies are out, but you know, it's German. Whereas this seems to be the worst, right? This is a kanchang weight. But notice here that again, your facing player is obviously doing Honitsu or Chinitsu, right? This is very unusual, right? These discards. They're definitely doing Honitsu or Chinitsu. It's worse. And other players have not discarded man tile at all. I mean, except for this one man, right? So man tile are being very scarce on the board. So even though this is Liamen, you might want to switch to another proto-run if you have a choice, right? So we'll keep that in mind. And about 2, 3. Like I said, 2 copies are out, but you know, that should not change your decision. We should definitely keep this. This is a really good weight, right? And now think about 7, 9. So a discard of 9 here suggests that Norse probably doesn't have 9 or 8, because if they had, he would not have discarded 9, right? Well, West definitely doesn't have 8, because he's doing Honitsu. Again, discarded 8 and 7 suggests that these the tiles that are in the neighborhood of these tiles are probably not held by South. So even though 1 copy of 8 is visible, and even though this is a closed weight, 8 bamboo is actually a really good weight, whereas 4, 7 man weight is going to be a pretty bad weight. No one is going to discard 4, 7 man. I mean, well, it's going to be really dangerous for him anyway. So you'd rather keep 7, 9 and discard 5, 6, according to tips 1 through 3. So that's what these slides say. So I'm going to cover tips 4, 5, 6, and then do another example of reading. So another tip is about discard order of kanchan, of closed weight proton. When you see 1, 3 kanchan, or equivalently 7, 9 kanchan, 7, 9 closed weight, discarded by the inner one first. When someone discards 3 first and then 1, or 7 first and then 9, then you can use that information as a clue. So one of the things that this discard suggests is that the discarder is not likely to have another copy of 1 and 3. Another thing you can infer is that he also is unlikely to have 2 and 4 tiles that are next to the discarded tile. So 3 then 1 suggests that 1, 2, 3, 4 are not likely to be held by the person who discarded it, right? So we can easily see why 1s and 3s are not likely to be held, right? If they have this shape, they probably are not likely to discard 3 and 1, right? Because they're going to get Hipeko. And it's not impossible, but not very likely. So the second point might need some explanation. Why can we say that they are not likely to have 2 and 4? If they had 4 after discarding 3 and 1, that means that this is the initial shape, right? 1, 3, 3, 4. And he discarded 3 first, then 1. That's not something that people usually do. If they want to try to maximize tile efficiency, we discard 1 first to leave for the possibility of perfect disjunct, perfect runaway, right? So 3 is likely to be kept if this were the shape. So this is not likely to be the shape that he had, right? So when 3 first and then 1 first, then 4 is unlikely to be held by the person who discarded it. Similar thing can be said about 2, 4, and 6, 8. Right? 2, 4, and 6, 8 are equivalent, right? If someone discarded 4 first and then 2, or 6 first and then 8, we can say that 2, 3, 4, 5 are unlikely to be held. If they discarded 6 first and then 8, you can say 6, 7, 8, 9 are unlikely to be held. I'm sorry, 5, 6, 7, 8 are unlikely to be held. Keep in mind that 1, they might have 1. Because when they have 1, 1, 2, 4, it's possible that they discard 4 first and then 2. Right? But 2, 4, 4, 5 is unlikely. You start with 2, right? Rather than from 4. So it's just a summary, right? 3, 1 suggests that these are likely to be live in the wall. 4, 2 suggests that these are likely to be live in the wall. 7, 9 suggests that these are likely to be live. 6, 8 suggests that they're not likely to have these. So tip 5 is maybe something that you might already know. The inner suji of a tile that's discarded by an opponent is likely to be held, meaning that if someone discarded 9